Okay, hello, trade pros. Welcome to the first futures midday update of this week. This is Mark coming at you guys from Toronto, Ontario, here on this quiet Victoria Day for Monday, May the 20th. It is a bank holiday, rather a holiday here in Canada, Victoria Day holiday. And this is the big May 2-4 weekend. So Canada is basically shut down today. Streets are quite quiet. Banks, all the federal institutions closed. However, we're in here with you guys and trading these markets. I'm just going to give you guys a quick update, show you what has happened really overnight into the afternoon half of this session. As far as news is concerned, don't have too much on the docket for today. We do have FOMC member Clarida speaking at 1:05, and then we have a high impact scheduled event. We have the Fed Chair, Mr. Jay Powell, speaking today at 7 p.m. Eastern. So could expect a little bit of volatility around that speech, around the Globex end of the session. However, really until the U.S. close, only real thing that can affect us here is FOMC member Clarida speaking at 1:05. Outside of that, a couple of updates Georgie covered in the morning. However, we can quickly glance over that. Just has to do with the China-U.S. trade war. We're seeing some squawks here that all U.S.-China trade talks are said to be halted, and this looks to be on the back of that executive order with regards to Huawei. And we saw over the weekend a bunch of various U.S. tech names, most notably Google, are set to halt supply to China's Huawei with certain critical software and components following a recently announced executive order by Mr. Trump. So this is kind of souring the trade talks here. On the back of that, we see that China is to wait and see to decide on countermeasures. Some reports indicate actions could include suspending business with all suppliers who halt dealings with Huawei and a temporary tariff hike on Apple. So on the back of that, keep an eye on Apple as well. Sure, these guys are getting hit here. A couple of names with regards to the Huawei from the US is Google, Intel, and Xilinx. So, oh, we got the squawk. All right, not that important of a squawk there. So that's basically all that we have with regards to the US-China front. We can see that, it's kind of soured here, and talks are set to be halted. So any squawks coming out this week with regards to an update as far as this U.S.-China trade war is concerned, that can definitely weigh on markets. It is still a headline-driven week. As long as U.S.-China trade wars are in the news, this thing will definitely weigh on the market. So keep an eye and an ear out for any squawks. Again, super important to have a news squawk service if you will be trading, especially if you're going to be day trading. So we got a great package with Trade the News. That's who we use here in the office and with our members. So that's all that we got as far as news is concerned. Also something else to cover here, a little squawk with regards to Mr. Trump and Iran. Mentioned that if Iran wants to fight, that will be the official end of Iran. Never threaten the United States again. This was a tweet. This tweet comes as a response to reports that a rocket was fired into Baghdad's green zone, less than a mile away from the U.S. Embassy. So watch as tensions start to pick up there. Crude oil caught a bit of a bid this morning, seemingly off the back of this information. However, now it looks like we're starting to press back towards that previous day close around the 62.92. So that's all that we've got here on the news front. Let's jump on over to our quote board here, get you guys a quick peek at our charts and set you up with some levels for the remainder of this session. And while I do that, let me screen share. And there we are. So what you guys see in front of you at the moment is our quote board here on Sierra chart. And what you see up top is your crude oil futures. We've traded so far around 470,000 contracts on the session so far. Daily change percentage is up 0.38%. Again, your previous day close comes in around 62.92. We're currently at 63.20. So a little bit of upside on today's session so far. We are above the previous day close and the US pitch session open. So bullish so far on the session. We have made a couple of moves higher, but volume's looking pretty good. Just about on average 450 to 500 is what we've been seeing. Crude, or rather S&P 500 on the other front, around 1 million contracts so far today. So just about on average, we've been seeing around, a bit of a pickup, to be quite frank. Over the last month, we were seeing around 750 to 800 around this time of day. Over the last 2 weeks, really around this trade war, we've been seeing that up itself up into the 950s to 1 millions. So good volume here on the SPOOs. However, for the session, we're looking a little bit neutral. We are down 0.37% from Friday's close. This was your 28.6075. And although we are down, we are back above the US Open here. So a little bit mixed, to be quite honest, a little bit neutral for today's session. Did sell off, did sell off overnight last night. And we're looking to recover some of those losses here on today's US session. So that's what we're seeing here on the quote board. Let's move off to my pivot charts here. And again, this thing's the crude oil chart here for the new contract rollover. So I only have really from the 17th of price action. What we're seeing so far today is that we didn't quite get back down into S1. That was at 62.45s. Our overnight lows around 62.70s, and that's kind of where we paused here before pressing back up above that pivot. Gotten above the pivot into that R1. R1 at the 63.50s has held on this. So this is a 1 hour bar chart here. So we've held that level once, rotating back down towards that pivot. Again, kind of neutral at the moment as we sit between these two levels. If we do get back below this pivot, we could see a potential press back down to that overnight low. And then alternatively, if we get back above R1, we could see a press back up into our previous day high and our overnight high sitting just under that 64 level right up there. So overnight high right under 64. If we see it come back down into the pivot, hold that level of support, and then press higher, we could see a potential move back into those overnight highs. However, for the moment, it's looking kind of choppy and kind of slow here, but sitting between the pivot and that R1, really about a 40-cent range. 63.11s your pivot, 63.50s are your R1. So that's what we're seeing here on crude oil. S&P 500. We are seeing a potential transition here back to the downside. See, we've had a high come in here. This was last week on the 17th. So on the Friday, a bit of a pop, couldn't quite get back above that level. And we've seen a little bit of a rollover happen overnight. Nice sell-off. We opened this morning around the S2. All right, so if I zoom this in a little bit better there, here we go. What you'll see is we are starting to see price action, or rather market structure, forming lower lows and lower highs. So we're seeing low, lower high. This is a little press. There is our lower low. Now we are coming back up, potentially looking to make a lower high. Where would that come in? Well, if you look at this, what level held here as support? We had the pivot held as support here. 1 rotation, 2 rotations, 3 rotations before we ultimately broke back under it. We came into the S2, bounced off of S2. We're back over S1 at the moment. We held it for 1 rotation. We are currently holding it for 2 rotations. Granted, this is 12:15, and this is your 1 hour bar charts. So this bar right here is only 15 minutes old. We've got another 45 minutes to go, but if you see that the buyers maintain, or we get a close above this S1, we could look for potential press back up into that pivot. Looking at that as a key level. Why is that? Simply because we came in here, made a nice little range, and then broke out quite aggressively. So if we fill back up into that level, we could see some sellers stepping back in. That would kind of line up with a lower low, lower high. If I zoom out here again and I show you kind of drawn in the TROs, drawn in the TROs here. It's very briefly, not very organized. but you're kind of seeing something like that happening here. Little channel you can draw in. So a little press back up into those 2870s. We start seeing some selling coming in. We could look to sell this thing for another leg lower. So that's what we'll be watching for on both of these charts here. Let's jump into the 10-tick range bars and give you a quick idea of what we could be looking for into today's session. So our open here on crude oil came in around the 62.75s. I've pressed up off of that. Here's the 5-day volume profile point of control. We've broken above that level. Now we are coming back in, kind of testing it. We're seeing some support starting to come in. Ultimately, though, what I'd be looking for is a potential press back down into that 63 region. Come in here, hold some support, and then look to press this thing back up. At the moment, I still think there's a little bit of downside. So long as the market stays below this Globex VWAP, I could see us pressing back down into that pit VWAP here and that 63 round number. If it does get back down into this zone, we start to form some rotations, then we can look to press this thing up. Kind of similar to what you're seeing here. We had the press up, form some rotations, then it started going sideways, and we had that big press higher. We're seeing something kind of similar. Press higher, little drift sideways. If it can start drifting a little bit sideways here near, what's going on with my mouse, near this level, could look to pick that thing back up. Alternatively, if you're looking to short this guy, you'll want to see a nice strong break below this level here in the 63s. You'll likely have some support here in your previous day close around the 92s, right? So if we break back in here, start to form a tight range, and we could look to press this thing back down to that open. Your overnight low and your previous day low all sit within this 3 to 5 cent cluster. So that could be a target for the sellers if we do get back below that pit VWAP. Alternatively, if this thing does hold, look for a press back up into the current US session highs here around the 63 mid 50s, and then back up into the previous day highs and your overnight highs sitting around 63.80s and 64. So that's what we got on crude. On S&P 500, we can see that nice little sell-off here on yesterday's open. Bit of a push higher up into those 2870s. We've seen those hold those rotations, and as we came into London around this time, nice little sell-off leading up to our US Open, which was around the 42 quarters. Sold off a bit on that, retested that overnight low here after the open, failed to continue lower here, and what you've been seeing is a rotation back up now. Where are we at? Really right around that previous day low. Nice key level as well here into the 54s. We've seen this level hold as supply once, twice. We got to press back down to the pit VWAP. What you are seeing here, however, is this pit VWAP is holding as support. You had 1 rotation, 2 rotation, 3 rotations, and now we're getting a press back up to that upside here. So ultimately what I am thinking is we've got a bunch of buy stops sitting right in this level, right above this structure here. If we can get the market, or rather if the buyers can press this thing back up over the 56s, we'll have these shorts. Whoever didn't take profit, if they didn't take profit down in here, those shorts are still going to be on, and they are going to be waiting. Rather, they will puke their short or they'll stops if we get back up above that level. So watch for that to happen. If that does happen, you'll have a quick press higher, look to catch a rotation and get this thing back up to that previous day close around those 60s, and potentially back up into those 70s, where we'll be looking to press this thing back down short. Recently, when the market's been bearish, on the bearish days, what we've seen is generally a move up into that overnight high, trading 1 or 2 ticks above that overnight high, and then collapsing. So overnight high today lands at the 76.50. That may be a bit of a stretch for today's session, but still something to look out for. You've also got your 5-day volume profile point of control lining up with your previous day close right around those 63 quarters, 62s. So it could be also a nice target for the buyers if we can get these sell stops or these buy stops to puke and press back up into that zone. So that's what we'll be watching for. Alternatively, I mean, we've been seeing this support hold here, so I'm looking bullish. However, if we do see another failure at this level, that could be a nice sign that we might be pressing lower. So all in all, 2854s are a big line in the sand. Above it, we're releasing some buy stops. I think we can press higher. If we maintain that level below it, I think we can get a press back down to that open, potentially retest those overnight lows. So that's what we'll be watching for here. In the room, some of our traders will be watching it for. We'll be watching for it. Personally, I myself will be enjoying the rest of the afternoon. We had a great day in the trading room this morning, and no need to stick around here as it's getting a little bit quiet. And for finals, to wrap it up here, we are going to show you guys our TRADEPRO Performance Index. So this is something we hold near and dear to our hearts on the TRADEPRO team. This is a running index showing how the team is doing, showing how the community is doing within the day trading room. And the best part about it is that this is all based on live capital. So what you are seeing is that our team had another strong showing today. For May the 20th, we had almost 61% of the live traders were up. Just under 10% were flat, and the remaining 30% were down, giving us an overall figure of 70.73% positive for today's session, which is great because it was not the most trending kind of days like we saw in the end of last week, your Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, where the opening range really only traded one side and then continued pressing higher. This week so far to start has been a little bit choppier. However, we've been keeping the team on the right side, and they've been doing a great job, as you can see here. Very strong last 3 days in the markets. Happy to see a great start for the week so far, and we look to continue that as the last 2 weeks of May trading start to roll into a close. So that's what we've got for you guys today. I'll switch back over here to the camera for the sign out, and we will see you guys very soon. We'll see you guys next week, or not next week. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm giving myself some time off. We'll see you guys tomorrow, bright and early on YouTube for the morning update. That comes out 9 a.m. Eastern, and then join us again around 12 o'clock here for this midday futures update. So that's going to be it for today. This is Mark from TRADEPRO Academy signing off, guys. Heading out to enjoy some of this beautiful sunlight. You guys take care. If you will be trading into the latter end of the session, remember your 3 rules: remain patient, remain diligent, and remain disciplined. That's going to be everything. Take care, guys. Until tomorrow. Ciao.